Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Pragna Nidamulu is the founder of EcoTeens.org. She founded EcoTeens with a vision to amplify the voices of teens worldwide to gain the attention of businesses, lawmakers, governments, and communities. Pragna currently is a junior at Freedom High School in Virginia. She led the first Eco Youth Global Sustainability Summit when she was a freshman 3 years ago. A two-time TEDx speaker and performer, she performed a dance drama about transcending cultural boundaries for one, and talked about sustainability and how it starts with Gen Z for the other. She's also a young mention on the board of youth for SEWA, an organization dedicated to serving others, and has earned 100 volunteer hours for this organization in just the past year. Pragna is passionate about sustainability and creating space for the youth, a distinguished social and small business entrepreneur. Off to you, Pragna.
Thank you so much, Susanna. It's an honor to be introduced by you. Susanna has been a huge supporter of me and EcoTeens, and I'm so thankful for her encouragement. Susanna Cass is a distinguished climate change advocate and a chief executive sustainability officer at Infraprime, and she leads a Swiss startup focused on net zero data sustainability. Since its establishment in early 2020, the company has earned many accolades, including the prestigious 2021 European Union Clean Energy Award. InfoPrime collaborates with influential entities such as the IPCC, NCCC Lab, and DOE to advance the carbon neutrality initiative, contributing to clean energy infrastructure advancements in the United States. She is also a data center advisor on the UN Sustainable Development Goals EP program, and she actively engages with global private sector leaders, researchers, and institutions to champion sustainable energy. She's recognized as a top leader in San Francisco and consistently listed in Climate 50. She is a Stanford Energy Fellow, a lecturer at Stanford, Cornell, and the National University of Singapore. She supports EcoTeens' mission for teens contributing to a carbon-free future. Notably, Susanna Cass has received prestigious awards, including the Lifetime Achievement Award in Data Centers in London, the industry's most prestigious honor. She holds the top position among the top 10 sustainability leaders in the world of data centers and was recognized as a trailblazer and pioneer in AI and sustainability by Inc. magazine and CIO Woman magazine in 2023. Thank you so much, Susanna.
It's a pleasure to join you in your journey.
Hi, everyone, advocates of sustainability and the vibrant community of EcoTeens. Welcome to the third Global Youth Sustainability Summit. I am Pragna Nidamolu, the founder of EcoTeens and your host for this extraordinary gathering of young minds committed to shaping a sustainable future. Today, we stand on the verge of change, brought together by a shared dedication to environmental stewardship. EcoTeens, the nonprofit organization that I'm proud to have founded, serves as a catalyst for this change, empowering young individuals to amplify their voices and raise awareness about the pressing issues of sustainability. Our world is now at a crossroads, and the challenges we face are profound: climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, and social inequity, and they demand our immediate attention and collaborative efforts. It's heartening to see the youth taking center stage, driving innovative solutions, and demonstrating an unwavering commitment to positive transformation. EcoTeens, through its impactful initiatives, and projects has cultivated a global community of passionate individuals determined to make a difference. The Global Youth Sustainability Summit stands as a testament to our collective power to drive change and build a more equitable and sustainable world. As we embark on this summit, I'm thrilled to facilitate two panels where we will have the privilege of hearing from insightful speakers. These thought leaders bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table, sharing their perspectives on critical questions that shape our understanding of sustainability. The panels will provide a platform for robust discussions, fostering dialogue on key issues and inspiring collaborative solutions. Our speakers, representing diverse backgrounds and expertise, are integral to the success of the summit. Together, we will explore how youth can effectively contribute to the global sustainability movement. EcoTeens is not just an organization, it's a movement, a platform that amplifies the voices of young individuals who are passionate about making a positive impact on our planet. This summit is an opportunity for us to learn, connect, and forge meaningful collaborations that will resonate far beyond the confines of this event. To our speakers, thank you so much for lending your voices to this crucial conversation. Your insights are invaluable, and we eagerly anticipate the inspiration and knowledge that you will share with us today. Thank you so much for being part of the third Global Youth Sustainability Summit. Thank you. It is with immense pleasure and honor that I introduce our keynote speaker for the EcoTeens Sustainability Summit, Sarah Nyberg.
Thank you.
Sarah Nyberg is a passionate climate advocate with a background in energy systems. Based in Stockholm, she works at South Pole, aiding companies in climate action by calculating carbon footprints and guiding them in setting science-based climate targets. Sarah holds degrees in environmental and energy systems engineering from Lund University. Actively engaged in voluntary roles for a decade, she currently leads Yes Europe as the country's representative. Besides her professional commitments, Sarah has a growing interest in donut economics, regenerative practices, meta crisis awareness, attention focus, and personal development. Her dynamic approach reflects a commitment to fostering positive change at the intersection of climate action, energy systems, and personal growth. Today, as our esteemed keynote speaker, Sarah Nyberg will share her insights, experiences, and invaluable wisdom, enlightening us on the transformative power of youth-driven sustainability. Join me in extending a warm welcome to Sarah Nyberg. Sarah, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ragnar. Thank you for inviting me here. So, my question is, how can we unite and work for a greener future and at the same time live good lives? This is a question I've thought a lot about because it's so important that we, if I may quote Greta Thunberg, do as much as we can, as long as we can. This means that we, for example, don't burn out, but have energy to be involved for a long time. Because the problems we're facing today can't be solved in just one day. My name is Sarah Nyberg. I'm from Sweden and I'm 29 years old. I've been active in different environmental organizations for 15 years, so since I was 14 years old. In periods, I had too many engagements, but then I actively reduced the number of engagements in order not to burn out, and in order to take care of myself and of others. In this speech, I would like to talk about the core words of the theme of the Global Youth Sustainability Summit, which is uniting for a greener future. So I'll talk about unite, greener, and future. I will do it from my perspective, based on my knowledge and experiences, and I hope to inspire you. So let's start with the first word, which is unite. To me, It's that we work together to solve the world's challenges we're facing today, such as climate change, biodiversity collapse, mental health crisis, global pandemic, and so on. You can do a lot of things alone, such as changing your lifestyle to consume less, to recycle more and eat plant-based. But many of the world's problems are systemic and therefore need systemic solutions, which need many people to cooperate to make a change. Together, we can achieve much more than we can do individually. It can be through various youth and environmental organizations such as EcoTeens, or through other NGOs, or that you're working professionally, like I happen to do, to create a greener future. One example of that, when you work together, you can achieve much more, is when I was active in the UNFCCC sphere and participated in several of the UN climate conferences. The latest one actually finished earlier this week in Dubai, so COP28. What I was engaged most in was the so-called technology mechanism, which is promoting climate technologies, and they promote to transfer them from countries usually in global north to global south. And I pushed for that Yango, the youth constituency, should have a seat in the advisory board of a part of the technology mechanism called CTCN, or the Climate Technology Center and Network. And it was only possible by working together with other people in Yango and in the other constituency that we made this come true. So 2 years ago at the COP26, I was in Glasgow in the UK, and then we finally got a decision from the COP to actually make sure that Yango has a seat in the advisory board of the CTCN. So that was amazing. Furthermore, you get more motivated to engage for a better future by engaging together with other people. I know that you can have some ups and downs. You don't always feel so motivated to write that extra email when you know that you would rather like to chill and read a book or watch a movie. However, when you meet other people who are motivated and you see that you're doing some progress, that makes you feel more motivated yourself. It's also important to unite, to get supported by others, especially during difficult times. I know many young people who have a climate anxiety today. According to research, that often comes when you are aware about the problem, but you don't know what you can do about it. So, when you talk about the issue with other people and get engaged together with others, you feel that you have some kind of impact. Then you also often feel better, and when you know that you have achieved something. It's also important to take care of yourself and of others. Many are engaged but might not feel good, so it's important to have an organization culture where you can share how you feel and take care of each other. For example, when I was active in the international group of Push Sweden, a Swedish youth environmental organization, we usually started our meetings with a check-in round where everybody shared how they feel. If someone felt good, that positive energy spread to the other people in the meeting. And if someone felt less good, then you could have a better understanding of that person. For example, why they were a bit quieter than usual. But to be engaged doesn't replace getting professional help from a coach, psychologist, or similar. It's rather that getting engaged is a complement to getting professional help if you need it. It is indeed important to feel well first, and you need to have the time and energy to be engaged. If you're sick or very tired, as I've been actually, unfortunately, the last 2 weeks, then you have much less energy and willingness to be engaged. Therefore, work towards having good preconditions to have the energy to be engaged. To me, it's very important with the basics to feel well. First, to sleep well and enough. Secondly, to eat varied and not too much and not too little. And 3, to do regular exercise. If I don't do these 3 basics well, I directly feel more tired and less motivated to be engaged. Also, when I'm at work and I feel just a little bit tired, I directly feel much less motivated to do my work. So if you feel like it's hard to create these conditions, then you can get help from your family, your partner, or friends, so that you can support each other in creating these good conditions. Furthermore, regarding motivation, it also helps to think about what drives you. So if you haven't thought about it in a while, I encourage you to think about it later today, and ideally also write it down. And when you feel that you're lacking motivation, then you can go back and look at that note, which will hopefully spark some of your motivation again. And you might wonder, what's my motivation to keep me engaged for 15 years? We humans are destroying the planet, mainly us in the global north. It has gone so far that the Earth can't manage all the pressures in areas spanning from climate change to biodiversity impacts to water resources. So we humans need to fix it. So as a person in the global north, I feel a responsibility as a human to do things better. Secondly, I also enjoy being in nature and see the beauty in it. I've read that, according to research, people are more inclined to take care about nature if they are more in nature themselves. And I also want to make sure that future generations can just pick an apple from an apple tree and just eat it. For example, I lived for a while in a collective which had 6 apple trees in the garden, which we enjoyed a lot. And I also want that future generations can drink clean water from a creek without having to put it through a water filter. So just like when I'm hiking up in northern Sweden, I can just take a cup or take my water bottle, hold it in the creek or in the stream and fill it up, and it's so fresh and tastes so good. So these were my main motivations why I have been engaged for a long time in environmental issues. So I could talk a lot more how I have been active in different organizations, but I can just mention a little bit about Yes Europe, which Pragna mentioned in the beginning. So first, I was at a conference, and as I say, meeting other people often sparks something in you and you get inspired. So I was at Yes Europe's annual conference in 2019. And back then they didn't have a local group in Sweden, but in many other countries. So then they convinced me to actually start a team in Sweden. So I did that during the final parts of that year and found other active members to be involved in the newly formed Swedish team of Yes Europe. And by the way, Yes Europe stands for Young Leaders in Energy and Sustainability Europe. And then, yeah, we grew, we got more members. Unfortunately, COVID just came, but we adapted so we could have events online instead of in person. And through that, I learned a lot how to organize events. I expanded my network. I learned from the actual events we organized, from the speakers and what they shared about everything from wind power to energy storage and solar power. And then later on, I became the country representative lead, so coordinating all these country representatives across Europe. And that also, by that I learned a lot, like leadership skills, how to coordinate and how to motivate a team. So apart from that, it's good, the other reasons I mentioned earlier, that it's good to engage together with others. You also learn so much from other people and from how you're engaging. Now I'm not as active anymore, but I'm really glad for everything I learned through being active in Yes Europe. So this was the first part of uniting for a greener future. So next up, I want to talk about what it is we're striving for. So what do we mean by when we say greener? In the description of the event, it also said a more sustainable tomorrow, and it is the Global Youth Sustainability Summit. However, I would like to challenge the word of sustainable. Of course, we should not degrade our planet. We want to be able to live on this planet for many more generations. However, to sustain things means keeping things as they are in a way. But I would like to work for a future which is better than the planet we have today, than the world we have today. And that is what I call a regenerative future. So how can we make sure that businesses not only do less bad, but actually contribute to the planet becoming better? How can we not only reduce our negative footprint, but increase our positive handprint? I think that many should change the mindset to think differently here, to make sure that our economies are regenerative. Secondly, the future also needs to be distributive. The profits in the company, for example, only go to the people in the top and to the people who already have capital, meaning those who are already rich. How can we distribute the created wealth more equally within a company, within a city, within a country, and globally as well? I honestly don't see how today's for-profit companies can lead to a more distributive economy. However, there are alternatives, such as not-for-profits and cooperatives. If you want to know more about an economy which is regenerative and distributive by design, I can really recommend checking out donut economics. Yes, it's exactly like the yummy donut you can buy and eat. And this donut symbolizes that we need to meet the needs of all people, and that's the inner circle of the donut, so the social foundation. So we need to meet the needs of all people within the means of the living planet, which is the outer circle, the ecological ceiling. Another perspective on this is that we should not working on solving the symptoms of the problems of today, but instead change towards well-being economy. Because that's what we at most want, to live well, right? So why don't we just change our economies to such which enable us to live good lives within the means of the planet? What if we change the whole goal of the society relating to the economy? What if we changed it from GDP growth and an ever-growing production and consumption, which, by the way, is not possible on this finite planet? So what if we changed this to the goal of global well-being? There's an organization named Wellbeing Economy Alliance, which is exactly working on spreading the awareness on this topic and what you can do to contribute to a well-being economy. A few weeks ago, I was at a one-day conference by Wellbeing Economy Alliance Sweden, where I met many inspiring people and learned a lot, both about what is actually well-being, and also that there are already hundreds of not-for-profits around the world. The Wellbeing Economy Alliance is starting hubs all over the world. So if you're interested, you can see if there's a hub close to you, or you can also join digitally in some ways. So, but I know it's much nicer if you can meet people in person. So this is what I think we should strive towards. So as I said, donut economics, regenerative and distributive by design, and also well-being economics. And if you think that, oh, I don't know something about economy and this is not my area, you can still explore it and see how you, from your perspective and from your position, can contribute to it in some way. Because I myself have engineering background. I haven't studied economics, but it's so important because it affects the whole economy. And in opposite to what you think, that it's very abstract, and so you can actually have concrete and positive impact on it. So yeah, that's what I think we should strive towards. So now to the third area and the third word in uniting for a greener future, which is the future. We need to imagine a different world. I highly encourage you to create your own positive vision for the future. Why should you create your positive vision for the future? I'll give you 5 reasons. First, mainstream movies today are mostly negative. There are many dystopias, but we see very few movies about the future which are actually showing something good, which are showing a society where people live well. Second reason, we get so many bad news today, which can really make you depressed. So to counterbalance that, create your own positive future vision. And third, I'm sure that many of you have heard that what we shouldn't do. Don't eat meat, don't fly, etc., to reduce your greenhouse gas emissions. However, that's not very motivational. And if you, like I, tell other people to, for example, eat less meat, they often get annoyed or even angry, and maybe even like anti-climate action. So instead, talk about that it's more healthy and better for the climate to eat plant-based, and better for animal welfare as well. And that you, for example, see more of the landscape and meet more people if you travel by train. That's a much more attractive argument instead of just saying, don't fly or don't eat meat. The fourth reason for you to imagine something positive you want to strive towards is do it because elite athletes do it, because it works. So what is this? Athletes often imagine that they are strong and fast and come first to the finish line. It's much easier to achieve it when you have imagined it. So what you imagine mentally actually affects your physical body. So that's a tip, that actually imagining it makes it easier for you to work towards it. And the fifth and final reason is that it's much nicer and more positive to strive for something that you want compared to something that you don't want. For example, work towards a well-being economy or better cycleways in your city instead of protesting against fossil fuel extraction or against fossil fuel subsidies. I'm not saying that no one should protest against these things, because we need all types of action. But if you feel more motivated to work for something which is good, then do so. Now that I have hopefully convinced you to create your own positive future vision, how do you go about it? Basically, my answer is do however you want. You can write, paint, think, write a song or a poem, or however you'd like to express yourself. And do you need some inspiration? Go out in nature, perhaps. I think we can learn a lot from nature. And personally, I find future visions related to solar punk very inspiring. So if you want, you can search for solar punk online and see for yourself. And then share your positive future vision with others to inspire other people. And after that, I encourage you to encourage other people to develop their positive future vision themselves. You can even gather a group of friends and develop your future visions together. Because as I said in the beginning, it's more fun and motivating to do things together with others. Or if you're active in an organization, organize an event where you have an evening where you just think about your future visions. I know actually a very newly started Swiss organization, Monda Futura, which will organize some events next spring and gather people's positive future visions. So I found that very, very exciting. And after that, after you have made your future visions, think about what could be some of the first steps in the direction towards your future vision, and do take those steps. Maybe you're curious to hear a bit about my future vision. So I'll share some. Just bring up the window where I wrote it down. So yeah, I could say a lot. I have a whole document of like 11 pages where I have written down a lot of things, but I will try not to bore you. I will bring up some points, however. So yeah, what is my vision for a greener future? So I studied energy engineering, so I'm very interested in energy and electricity. So one point is, in the future, in our greener future, we only have renewable electricity, and we have electric cars, but we also have very good public transportation system, which people use first of all, but only if you really need, if you have to have a car, then people are using electric cars. And you see that trucks, they are hybrid electric or go on electric highways. And some of the larger trucks, they are using green hydrogen. So hydrogen produced by renewable electricity. Maybe we're still flying, but very little. And the smaller planes are electric. The larger airplanes might run on sustainable aviation fuel, which is bio-based. Then to another area, if we leave the area of energy, so politically, we live in a democratic system where people really contribute actively, not only go and vote every 4th year, but are really influencing the day-to-day politics, and they are using their democratic rights. And people are very active as citizens, and maybe you even get an income or perhaps a basic income. So there's something called UBI, or Universal Basic Income. I think that's really part of my future vision. Furthermore, in my future vision, we have social support system. So the society is really taking care of the people who have the needs. And to the economic area, in my future vision, we don't have capitalism anymore, but something else or something complementing it. Because we can't have infinite growth. So the goals of the society is not like endless GDP growth, but instead it's that people live well in the countries. And furthermore, in my positive vision, individuals are working less. So we have more time for relationships and to do fun things and to be active in different organizations. We do more of culture, music, arts, and people are really seeing the meaning of their life and of their work. And furthermore, we eat healthy food, mostly vegetarian and vegan, so plant-based. Maybe people eat meat once per week, but then it's only from cows that walk where you can't harvest anything else, and that you use only natural manure, so no artificial one. Furthermore, in my future vision, many people live in cities. So in houses that are well insulated, especially in colder climates where I live. And there are solar cells, solar PV on the roofs. People are walking, the cities are green and silent. And it's very friendly for people who walk and bike and take collective transport. And furthermore, we're also sharing a lot. So we have these kind of libraries where you can share toys or tools and so on. It's all enabled by some digital apps. And last but not least, we're also upcycling and reusing things, so we have a full circular economy, so nothing goes to waste. So these are some points of my positive future vision, and hope to inspire some of you from this. So to summarize my speech in 3 points. 1, get engaged together with others. 2, be clear on your goal. And 3, create your positive future vision. Before I wrap up, if this has sparked something in you, or if you just have questions, I'm happy to connect with you on LinkedIn and hear about your motivation, help you explore your future vision, and I'm happy to talk about how we can collaborate. And actually, I'm working on a project right now where I'm happy to collaborate with others. It's called Reconnect to What Matters. So it's about reconnecting to yourself. What are your values? What do you want? What is your motivation? It's about reconnecting with other people, meet people in person, and really be social with others, not just via social media, but really in person. And then reconnect to nature, reconnect to a beautiful nature surrounding us, and just be there and enjoy it. So I hope that really more people will reconnect in different ways. So to finalize, it is urgent to take action because the time is running out. But because the time is running out before we're reaching more global tipping points. But it's not too late. We can still go out in nature and enjoy those sweet and crispy apples and clean water in the creeks. We can still change things, and we have more impact if we unite for a greener future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Your insights are incredibly valuable. Your emphasis on unity, well-being economics, and the imperative for a paradigm shift towards sustainability leaves a lasting impact. And the call to action resonated strongly, inspiring all of us to actively contribute to a more sustainable and greener future. It was a pleasure to have you as our opening keynote speaker today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks a lot.
As we continue through our journey through the EcoTeens Sustainability Summit, it's an honor to delve deeper into our next segment, the Environmental Advocacy Panel. This panel embodies the spirit of collective action and unwavering dedication to preserving our planet. Our esteemed panelists today are the voices of change, the architects of sustainable practices, and the champions of environmental advocacy. They bring forth a wealth of knowledge, experience, and passion that collectively paints a vibrant canvas, hope for a greener future. Throughout this session, we will explore diverse perspectives, innovative strategies, and impactful initiatives in environmental advocacy. Our panelists, each an expert in their own right, will enlighten us with their insights, shedding light on the pressing challenges that we face and offering pathways towards meaningful solutions. Pranava was meant to be the facilitator today of this panel. However, he is a little under the weather, so I will be facilitating it. Let me introduce our panelists here. Bode, a dedicated student at Fura Bay College, University of Sierra Leone, passionately advocates for children's rights and tackles climate change issues. Serving as the National Secretary of Youths in Action for Climate Change, Bode and his team work tirelessly to raise awareness and implement practical measures, striving for a greener and more sustainable future for Sierra Leone, impacting community and influencing policymakers. Brian Rutledge is an award winner, chemical engineer, and environmental nonprofit leader with expertise in sustainable engineering, waste as resource initiatives, and international conference speaking. A versatile professional with a strong background in technical and scientific documentation, Brian excels in Six Sigma, troubleshooting, and process engineering, demonstrating leadership as a temp engineering manager. Deanna Philpott, a magna cum laude graduate in international studies and political science from the Virginia Commonwealth University, specializes in teaching English for sustainability professionals and advocates for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. With a strong commitment to global community development, she brings extensive volunteer experience, including contributions to the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps and Nicaragua's Teco Housing Project. Welcome, panelists.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
All right, now let's move into the panel that everyone is waiting for. So let's start talking about empowerment through action. How can young advocates transform individual actions into collective movements to drive significant environmental change? Any of you are free to answer.
Well, I'm happy to speak up first. Hi, Pragna. Hi, guys. Thank you for having me. I think these questions that you're asking are ones that we need to be asking within our communities, because we are starting to see that people do want to take individual action, and then they say, I feel it's not enough. Look at how much influence a very small portion of us has over our laws, over the global systems that we have in place. And we say, I'm just me. But as Sarah pointed out, when you start synergizing and when you start grouping people together who have the same mission, you feel that your work is actually gratifying, and that there is energy behind you pushing you forward, that, like they say, the sum is greater than all of the the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right?
Right, I agree. Anyone else have anything to add to that?
Well, this is Brian. You may notice that I'm not 18, but I will tell you my experience. As a teen, I remember walking across a bridge one day and seeing black gunk coming into the river from a factory. And the river was already smelly because of lack of a waste treatment plant from a cheese factory up further upstream. So the whole thing was literally offensive to eyes and nose. And I decided at that point that I was going to be working to fix all of that stuff. And what I did is continued my high school education and eventually became a chemical engineer, where I could work inside the factories and make sure all that stuff didn't happen from the inside. Among other things, I've saved probably millions of tons of waste and wasted energy, wasted materials, heat going out into the rivers. I've contributed to functioning waste treatment plants as a result. I've also literally put with my own hands plugged up pipes with wooden plugs on the inside of the factory, which shouldn't have existed, and made systems so that they went to the waste treatment plant and were properly managed. I've fixed leaking underground pipes. I've fixed leaking underground tanks. I've established a nonprofit now that's planting trees in areas that were eroded as a result of mining in the past. So the mining pollution is coming from the soil into the soil, and then into the rivers, and then into the ecosystem, where it wreaks neurological damage on people and the area around us. So there are things that can be done from the inside, and you don't have to be a traditional I don't know, you can be an advocate from the inside without carrying signs and shouting, although I've done that along the way too, but that's another story. But anyway, there are things that can be done by you in the inside. So I'm done with my experience, and we'll pass it along to other folks to tell their story. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. That's incredible, trying to fix the problem, like Deanna said, rather than going against it. Thank you. Bode, do you have anything to add, or we can move on to the next question? I think you're on mute.
Okay. Environmental advocacy in Sierra Leone. Anyway, everyone, I'm so happy to join this summit today. I was actually on a community cleanup. We went to clean a hospital because that is what we do, myself and my team, and I just had to rush up to come and grace this particular summit. And I want to say that it's a pleasure, and I feel so humbled for this. The first thing we do when it comes to environmental advocacy, because it has a whole different tone, especially when it comes to the developing countries. You have people, I mean, those who mainly contribute to the changes that are happening in our environment, having nothing else to do. Like, we have people who heavily rely on cutting down trees, like deforestation, and they produce coal. But then you go to them and you ask and you tell them what you're doing will be detrimental to our environment. But then they ask you, but that's our own source of living. So sometimes we find it very difficult to do these things, but we are also doing that. So one of the actions that we take to collectively impact the climate space is about awareness raising. We tell them about the consequences of the actions, and if actions are not taken, especially now, what will happen in the near future. We are also engaged in tree planting activities. There are certain areas that have been deforested, and we move around towns. Actually, we get some fundings from non-governmental organizations. They help us with seedlings. So we plant trees in some of these areas. We also do beach cleanups and cleaning of certain public sites, like what we have done just about an hour ago. We went to the Rokupa Government Hospital. It's actually a very popular hospital, one of the biggest in the city here. But we found out that there are areas that are not quite tidy for patients and staff. So it was a project that we embarked on. It's actually self-funded. So the team went there this morning, because it's actually around 2 p.m. here. So we have done our own bit, and it does not only stop there, because taking action could be one, but then what will ensure that there should be continuity in what you've done? So then we do actions and then we sensitize them. We raise an awareness as to the need for cleaning the environment. And also when it comes to deforestation issues, we tell them why deforestation is actually very wrong. So another thing that we do is collaborate with non-governmental organizations. We have had partnerships with key organizations that are climate-wise. We have the National Environmental Protection Agency, which are also they're also doing their best to make sure that we tackle the issues of climate change. Climate change, especially, I'm going to focus on climate change because it is what we are feeling right now. Like we are in the Harmattan season, December, here in Sierra Leone. We do not used to experience rain, especially in this time of the year. But then we have had acute rain, like it rains almost every day, and people are confused. Like 3 days ago, I was passing by the street and it started raining in the afternoon. A person, a seller by my side, told me, but this didn't used to happen. And I told him, it's because of climate change. I saw how dumbfounded he was. Like people don't really know what is happening. So our action of like creating impact through awareness raising, through campaigns, and also engaging social media have actually been very great.
Wow. Amazing stories from all three of you. Thank you so much. Now let's move on to policy dynamics. What key approaches can young environmental advocates take to influence policy and affect systemic change at a local, national, and global level?
May I go first?
Of course.
May I go first?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you. One of the key things that should be done, I appreciate EcoTeens. I think you have done one of the greatest things that I consider, especially when affecting climate space is concerned, where you create dialogue, you create a platform, where different viewpoints are considered. Like you have people from the north, you have people from Asia, you have people from Africa. This platform gives an opportunity where people have these where people bring about their own viewpoints. They tell you what is happening from this part of the world. And when these viewpoints are collectively come together, you are able to bring about a very good decision at the end of the day. And when we are able to identify and then amplify our shared differences and how the issues, environmental issues affect us, you know, these are some of the ways. And if we are also able to collaborate with other sectors, whether in the governmental agencies or non-governmental agencies, so it's not only about bringing the viewpoints together, you know, creating the platform and amplifying them, but then we can also make very good steps if we collaborate with other sectors who are also in the environmental protection and aspects. Yeah, we have like we can also consider youth-led initiatives like the Youth in Action for Climate Change here in Sierra Leone. It has been very impactful. And when I talk about environmental issues, I focus mainly on the youth. This is because if actions are not taken now, it is the youth who are going to face the greatest consequences. So if we create this platform where youth initiatives, you know, are utilized, where youth capacities are utilized, we'll be able to achieve that.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. We all should be part of this change. Do you have
Definitely.
anything to offer for this question?
This is Brian again. I wanted to point out that even the best policies of government need to be enacted on the ground by real people doing real actions together. So when the opportunity arises, the government has provided the background and the foundation for action. We need to make sure that people actually get the work done. Like, for instance, if a government makes it more beneficial in some way to the economy to recycle, someone has to take it upon themselves to actually use recycled materials and produce something new. It's not enough to merely say that we should do something. People have to do it as well. So I think that's true no matter what you do. So I encourage people to do what they can within their own scope of life to make the policies that do happen work efficiently so that we can encourage more activities, more support for the things that matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I agree. People actually need to get out there and do the work. It can't all be talk. We also have to do so much. Diana?
Yeah, if I can add on that, I think we always look at like civil society and people actually participating in their government to take part in the development of policy, the conversations. But really, as Brian is saying, when people don't wholeheartedly believe that this is the change that we need, the result is policy that is going to perpetuate what we choose. Every dollar we spend, every decision we make to participate in this global system, conscious or unconsciously, is supporting the policies we have in place, or it's in some ways, if you're going to retract your participation, it's a rebellion against what we know is failing us and what we know cannot continue to be supported. And if we want policies to change our behavior, I think we're kind of absolving ourselves of our own role in this as individuals, and we can instill the changes that we see are so necessary to make right now and stop waiting on somebody else to fix the mess that we're in, especially in the global north. And we talk about it all day long, and then we have COP28 and we have our global leaders saying this isn't really what the world wants. And for some people, the idea of completely phasing out fossil fuels in the middle of a lot of people trying to convert to more better living standards and trying to develop their local economy, they're not ready to have the few resources that are available taken away because they're not sustainable. And I think Fode touched on that with people, when given the opportunity, will make the right decision. But if there are no policies in place that say don't cut down the trees, and even if there are, but people need the charcoal, they're going to continue to cut down the trees, and then they become criminals in the eyes of the law. And those are the people that can't afford to be treated like criminals because they don't have, they can't get themselves out of the mess that they put themselves into. So it becomes this vicious cycle of, oh, well, why did you do that? The policy says, but it's not taking into consideration all of the different angles. And I think I've made my point.
Definitely.
I'd like to build on that a little bit. I'll give you an example. I'm working with artisanal miners in Kenya, and since colonial times, they've used mercury to process gold and and cyanide and various chemicals that create death to the ecological system while perpetuating their ability to make a living. They're poisoning themselves through poor industrial hygiene, if you want to put it that way, from an engineering point of view. So the government of Kenya, and in fact the world, has said, okay, we're going to phase out mercury. And Kenya has actually said, okay, using mercury to mine is illegal. But the trade continues because people, first of all, they don't have an alternative. Second of all, if they did have an alternative, they don't know how to use it. Third of all, if they did know how to use it and they've got an alternative to the illegal practices, then they don't have any way to get that chemical alternative, the safe reagent, the good industrial hygiene choice, the legal choice, and they still have to feed their family. So one of the things I'm doing in the nonprofit is not only to fix the pollution that's already there by planting trees and such, but to train people, provide alternatives, and to develop supply chain into the remote areas of Kenya where the mining is going on. And I'm not saying remote in the respect that this is jungle, but remote in the respect that it's not Nairobi, so small towns. But not only do people have to say this is illegal and to say that it's bad, but there has to be work on the ground to make the alternative work in a practical sense, to make it real for the people so that they do have that chance to do something different, something better, something that doesn't poison their babies and themselves and their unborn children. So altogether, once again, it's easy to make a policy, but it's harder to actually get it done in the real world. And nonprofits such as KCBO, and I'm sure others around the world, I know that there are others around the world that are doing the same kind of thing, either climate change action or pollution prevention, pollution abatement. But there has to be an economy built around this. And what we're doing is we're trying to build the economy so that the local community supports what needs to be done, not that it all comes in from the outside. So it's this really work on the ground that has to be done. And it can be done, and there are people doing it already. But as I said, policy isn't alone, and laws are not alone, can't do it alone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I totally agree. Some people just might not have the resources to do otherwise, but it's on us to provide alternative solutions for them to be able to do the things that they have to do in order to make a living. Thank you so much. My next question is about global collaborations. So, how can young environmental advocates initiate and sustain collaborations across borders to collectively address these urgent global environmental challenges and drive change?
I'll go for that one because I think the internet for the youth is something that is relatable and also provides a sense of connection that sometimes now we do lack. And I know that we can also argue that technology is what's disconnecting us, and there absolutely has to be the complementary non-screen time. But the ability to cross borders is it's in our hands. We're all in different places right now, coming together to support more than conversations, but action. And kids can do that too. And I think a lot of the frustration in our participation now in the economy is seeing how much competition that the internet also creates, but how much potential that we have to fill spaces in a market that has infinite potential, because we have infinite problems in front of us that need solving. And if that's the case, then we invite everyone of all backgrounds to the table to find the sustainable solution, which is different for every community, just as our lifestyles differ for every individual, but they can be considered sustainable. And I think kids have really great ideas that we don't allow them to share because they don't have the same rights. They don't have the same opportunities to share their grievances because we say that they're irrational. But I work with kids and they're a lot more rational than some of the adults I know. And I think we do have to allow them to contribute, maybe not with all of the responsibility that everyone else has, but some of these kids can lead the rest, and other kids will follow them, and they have great ideas about how to get connected, how to unite people around the same cause, and in a fun and innovative way through technology. We're sharing information, we're having class that one teacher can give one time and millions of students can watch, and they're all learning the same lesson. And then afterwards you have a class together and say, let's all discuss the material. And rather than kids regurgitating information, they have the chance to think objectively about a problem that they are facing just like we are. And then they're going to have to lead us even further. So if we don't get them on board now and we throw them into it later and say, sorry, you didn't have anything to do with this, but here's your mess now, it's aggravating. You don't even want to lead that kind of system. If they're brought into it and to understand that this is this current situation, you have a role to play and you matter so much more than you know, because every single one of us is either part of the problem or part of the solution, and you can choose one or the other. And yes, of course, there are gradients. Some of us are doing way more damage than others, but you do choose a side, consciously or unconsciously again.
Right,
Thank you.
definitely. Anything to add?
Yeah. I think one of the innovative ways we can use is to engage in, let's say, multimedia or any kind of storytelling, like using entertainment to talk about climate change issues. I live in a part of the world where people value entertainment so much, and I think we can leverage entertainment to talk about climate change and to talk about environmental issues. If it is if you are talking about environmental issues, like ordinarily around here, people don't even get interested, because it comes with a lot of things. There are certain areas when the impact, let's say, of environmental degradation and the actions that we are, what we are doing is affecting the environment. Sometimes when the impact comes, there are certain people in our communities who attribute it to certain things that are really different from reality. And that also has to do with inequality. There are certain issues, environmental issues, where they don't allow women to talk about in certain areas. in Sierra Leone. They say, well, this is for men. And it becomes even more difficult because most environmental issues really need to be included. Women really need to be included. They must be included because, especially the issue of climate change and some other issues, women are mostly impacted by climate change issues or environmental issues generally than even men. So as advocates here, as climate activists here, we find it very, very difficult to like send our messages across. But then we found a way, like using arts, multimedia, like me who can sing, if you have people who can do art, if you have people who can like do a speech, yeah, we want to leverage that also. About 2 weeks ago, before the mayor of Freetown left for COP28, we met with her and she said that she wants to organize a climate fest that mainly focuses on environmental issues, that mainly focuses on protecting our environment and also biodiversity. So we want to leverage using entertainment and talking about environmental issues. We don't know how that is going to impact them, but we believe people have experimented certain societal issues before and it worked. So we want to leverage that also. And we also want to do something around online campaigns because most people in the world right now are focused on the new technology, the new media. And if we can talk about environmental issues like online, you know, the perspective is different though, but I want to base my perspective around where I am right now. And if we cannot reach a lot of people individually, but we can reach these people through, let's say, internet or social media, then we can also leverage that. And like the last speaker said, we can also include children. It works. And that is one of our goals. When you raise a climate conscious generation, we know that a lot of people who are in the 50s, 60s don't really, most of them are not interested in this part of the country, in this part of the world. But if we can raise a climate conscious generation, children, let's start from children, for example, like school-going children, inculcate the knowledge of environmental advocacy in them, and they grow up with that, I believe they feel belonged to the issues of our environment and they'll be able to take actions, whether they grow up or not. I think these are the innovative ways we looked into.
My apologies. Thank you so much, Bode. Very, very insightful stories from all of you. Thank you. So, bouncing off of this, what strategies can we use to engage more people in environmental issues, especially in communities with limited access to resources or education?
I think I want to go first. Let's encourage representation. Let's encourage that. If people, especially people in underrated communities, people who have little knowledge about the environment, if we give them the platform to represent, if we give them the platform to tell us what's really happening, I think we're able to do something in the climate in the environment space. The reason is because most people, let's say, who move from the city, let's say, to go to the rural communities who are really underrepresented, most of them don't know how to live with, let's say, in the issue of biodiversity. The people who are in the rural areas know how they have been adapting to some of these changes that are happening in their communities. And then if we are able to bring them on board, to like allow them to represent, to allow them to be part of the policy making body, I think they will be able to bring about solutions because they already know the problems, they already know what's affecting them. But then the issue is most of them don't know the solutions. So if we have people who can think and bring about solutions, I think, and we have these people who really know the problems, who have been dealing, who have been affected with the problems directly. I think when these people, when these two sectors come together, there is this synergy that the synergy will be there to fight against these issues. There are certain areas. Let me give you an example. Like people in the coastal areas of Sierra Leone, they have been really impacted, like severely. They they used to cut the mangrove trees in the areas that they stay, and the mangrove trees have been really helping them to prevent flooding and a lot of other things. But then these people indiscriminately cut down these trees. Some of them do not even know the impact. They don't know that the mango trees are the ones are what are protecting them from flooding. But then they cut down these trees and they don't really know the impact. They don't really know the impact on birds' habitats. But then they just cut down. It's happening. And when we go to some of these places, I really feel bad. You like ask someone, why are you cutting them? They just say, well, it's for firewood, or maybe we want to use it to prepare salt. But then they don't really know. They don't care about equating the consequences versus what they are getting. But there is no alternative. We find it very difficult. So when we bring these people together, they already know the problem, and then we have people who can bring about solutions, sustainable solutions to these problems. I think that would be a very good start.
I agree. Anyone, any other comments? Thank you, Fode. That I agree. We need people to be innovative and have solutions in each of these communities because if we don't, how will they be educated on this topic? How will they even be able to provide solutions? Thank you.
I will just comment really quickly. I think when we talk about people who don't have access to resources and are underrepresented, we also have to remember that sometimes the paperwork and the official formalities of participation are sometimes overcomplicated, and they'd be happy to participate if it were simpler, if it were like we've said, done in or planned in a way that people agree with what participation looks like to them, and yeah, how maybe some people do feel comfortable having other people represent their interests in a community forum. Maybe some people don't, and they want to be there every week, and that kind of those nuances matter because it's a lot more complicated than it looks, but it can be simplified to make it easier for people to participate and for people to understand.
I feel like that plays into accessibility as well. Just making all of this a lot more accessible to people makes people want to join it and be more part of it. My final question to you all is about careers. So, what opportunities exist for these young people interested in pursuing careers in sustainability and environmental advocacy, and how can they prepare for these paths or careers?
I would love to go. I think that, like I said, we are seeing a lot of challenges that are complicated, and there are many solutions, and that is part of where the youth comes in, is to help us find them. And they are going to take over traditional jobs, but with an added layer of what is this doing to our planet? Is this a win-win-win? do I feel like my time is actually valued? Am I investing my energy, which is actually more valuable than any of the material that we have in front of us that if we think of ourselves and our energy as something that is valued, we enjoy investing it into some sort of project that relates to us personally or to our interests. And so we don't mind giving our time to those things. It's not necessarily about the money. It's about, do we fit? Do we feel like we fulfill the role that is expected of us and that we expect of ourselves? And sometimes we see the options and we think none of this fits with who I am, with what I believe in, with what I want to support, with what I want to work towards with my entire life. Like, you ask people to come to work for 40 hours a week, you better hope that they care about what they're doing. And if they don't, then at least it's not constant suffering. Like, some people like doing day in and day out tasks that are safe and that they're used to doing because it gives them a sense of comfort. They can master them. Maybe in 10 years they want to do something different, but again, that like the economy is changing very rapidly. So knowledge is getting less and less valuable. Your skills, the energy you bring, the critical thinking skills that you have, your communication, your ability to bring people together, your ability to adapt, your ability to articulate complex ideas and find simpler solutions to big problems will help so many kids. And yes, the competition is fierce because everybody's coming to the playing field. But again, there are just so many opportunities that, like city planning, we're going to have to redo all of these cities. No, I'm just kidding. But there's just a lot of room for making big changes happen, and they have to. So the more manpower behind it and the more people who are motivated to be a part of the solution, the better. And that starts with kids. If you put them in an environment where they're excited to help and they're excited to learn and they're excited to be part of something that they want to build, they'll do it happily.
Yeah, definitely.
then-
We should make these people want to do it rather than make them have to do it. Yeah. Brian Pudding?
Yeah, um, I don't I don't have more knowledge in this career stuff, but I think what youth especially should always hold on to is advocacy and then volunteerism. How do you prepare yourself for the careers ahead of you? I may not be able to identify these careers because the opportunities are limited. But then, what brings me into climate activism or environmental activism is the love and the passion I have. What I think will be the future if actions are not taken. I feel that there is something I need to do, no matter how little, and it does not have to come from the the support that I get. Yeah, maybe financial gain or whatever. That is not it. I just feel that if we're talking about climate space, or let's say environmental advocacy in particular, which pertains humanity, I have this need. There is this urge always to collaborate with other activists, to collaborate with other advocacy groups, or maybe even involve myself in a lot of things, especially those that have to do with protecting the environment. So to me, it's not about what I may achieve tomorrow, but then the mere sense of commitment that has to do with fighting for the environment, to me is very invaluable.
Hmm. I agree. Um, yeah. Thank you. I Brian, I think you're on mute. I Yeah.
and going all the way to college careers. I mean, I'll go back to chemical engineering. I mean, I've been involved in ecology and all those things long before there were such words as sustainability. You know, you used to call it other things, but the concept was still there. But the ability to do some of these things that I'm doing now are based on my knowledge of chemistry and engineering. So if I hadn't learned those things along the way, I wouldn't be doing these things. So, education uh, allows action, whatever your action, whatever action you've decided to take.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your insights on that one. I agree. And what you just said is so true. Education it's where it starts, and it that is the action that people need to take, and people need to learn it. Young people need to learn about all of this through their education so that they can grow up to be educated and interested in these areas. Thank you so much, all three of you, for being panelists for this panel. It is very, very valuable insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pragna. It's awesome. Really cool.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm so glad to share my insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. In around 10 minutes, we will move on to our panel two, but in the meantime, we will take a short break. Thank you so much, everyone.
I'm going to go out on a limb and make sure my voice is heard. Yeah. Okay, great.
Excellent.
Oh, I can hear
Okay.
you well too.
That's good. See.
I wasn't sure if this was like a quiet, sorry if I broke silence. I just wanted to make sure everything was sounding okay. Okay, great.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the same. Can you hear me?
Perfectly, Joe.
Yes.
Awesome. I can't see you guys. Is that expected?
Oh,
I can see you on the side, so
yeah.
you know,
My settings then. Okay. Oh, there we go.
Ah, here you go.
Awesome.
still got your Christmas colors on there, Joe.
I actually think the red and the green are kind of my colors anyway, so it's just part of my normal wardrobe. Yeah. I don't have my hat. Should I have my hat?
Yeah, I don't know. It's up to you.
Maybe not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe it depends what it is
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, it's a hand knitted Santa hat.
Really? Is that the one you had? I saw a picture of yesterday that was hand knitted. Wow,
I
impressive.
didn't do it. I didn't do it. Yeah. No,
Wow.
it's been a while since I knitted, but
Mm. Beautiful sun coming through right now, so just absorbing all of that vitamin D, I think it is. It's nice.
I'm jealous.
When I was talking to Pia from Sweden, yes, well, you know Pia from Sweden, but she's just talking about how little sun they have, like how little it's all very dark right now because she's that much northern. And,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's like,
Yeah, it's
oh,
not as bad here, but
yeah, yeah. Oof.
it's ridiculous. Oh,
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. As we move forward in our exploration of sustainable practices, it's my pleasure to introduce our next engaging panel, Agility for Sustainability. In today's rapidly changing world, the need for adaptable and dynamic approaches to sustainability has never been more crucial. This panel embodies the convergence of two powerful forces: the agility inherent in agile practices and the imperative of sustainability. Agility, with its principles of adaptability, collaboration, and iterative progress, has proven to be a transformative force across industries. Today, we aim to unravel its potential when intertwined with the pursuit of sustainability. The panelists joining us are visionaries who understand the vital role of a growth mindset, adaptability, and resilience in promoting sustainable practices. Their insights will illuminate the ways in which agile methodologies and a growth oriented mindset can revolutionize our approach to sustainability. Through embracing change, fostering collaboration, and cultivating adaptability, we aim to discover how these principles can serve as catalysts for meaningful and lasting change in our quest for a more sustainable future. It's my pleasure to introduce each of the panelists. Joanna Mazraf is an agile and sustainability coach dedicating to fostering happiness and effectiveness in individuals and teams. Passionate about sustainability, she actively contributes to the Agility Impact Meetup group, promoting the positive aspect of agile thinking on global challenges. Joanne Stone, a seasoned professional coach with expertise in agile leadership, is dedicated to cultivating teams that thrive on making a difference. Leveraging her extensive experience in systems development, she actively contributes to the Toronto Agile community, fostering mentorship and a humanistic approach to work and life. Yuta Eckstein is an accomplished independent coach and consultant, renowned for her expertise in guiding teams and organizations through agile transitions globally. With a strong background in large distributed groups, she has co-authored the book Company-Wide Agility and Beyond Budgeting, Open Space, and Sociocracy, and published influential works on agile software development and organizational change. Welcome, everyone.
Thanks for having
Nice
us.
to be here. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, moving into the panel that you all have been waiting for, let's get started with the questions. So first, I'd like to talk about adaptive solutions. How can the principles of agility, such as flexibility and adaptability, be applied to foster innovative and responsive solutions for pressing sustainability challenges faced by today's youth? Anyone can answer.
Okay, great. Okay. I guess I'll start. So what comes up for me is that our youth right now is in a place right now where the solutions, the problems we're facing right now are super, super complex, hugely complex. And to be able to work in the complexities that we have in the world today, we need to also look at different approaches of how to do that. So there's this aspect of, in order for us to innovate, in order for us to create, in order to work through some of these challenges, we need to look at how we can look at breaking down the work, looking at making small little steps in order to figure out and learn from each of these particular steps in order to make a difference. And so we can't think of the fact that we have a solution, one solution that's going to fit all. And it's really difficult to find that one particular solution, but we need to be able to embrace doing a lot of experimentation to learn what is the best potential solution. And agility allows us to do a lot of that innovation, and through its time constraints, its iterations, its experimentation type thinking, It allows everyone to be able to get into the specific world that we're dealing with right now.
Definitely. Anyone else have anything to add to that?
I can add to that maybe the one thing, and it ties very much into what Sharon was saying. So one problem that I often see is that people think they can make a plan and stick to that plan. And we hear this a lot around sustainability, like there is the plan, where do we want to be in 2030 or 2050 or 2070? So plans that are going really way out, right? And the thing is, we are dealing here with a wicked problem, a huge, difficult thing, and there is no such thing as making a plan and believing we can follow through. So we need to be flexible and adaptive. And with every little step we are taking, as John was saying, we need to then learn and assess again, where are we now? Did this really help? Do we need to change anything? So being adaptive and flexible, right? And that might mean that our plan that we have in mind or even have spoken out, which is long-term, will be obsolete very soon because we learned something that changes everything. And this is, I would say, a really typical agile approach of acknowledging that long-term plans might be good as directions, but not as a guidance how to follow through.
So true, so true. That's why we need iterative planning so we can make it to that large goal. Joanne, I'm sorry, can you explain what the complexity facing youth is that you mentioned?
Yeah, I was just texting Susanna. So and Yuta just talked about it too. She started getting into the aspect of a wicked problem. So we're currently in a world where the problems that we're facing has multiple stakeholders, right? Has multiple solutions, has multiple problems, has multiple symptoms. There isn't one expert alone that can actually solve any of these issues and requires a diversified team to actually solve. So it just even like from like some of these things can take a lifetime to actually solve, right? We may not be able to even solve any of these things in our lifetime. So complexity, is that enough of a definition of complexity? But that's basically when I look at that, it's almost unfathomable to look at how to actually solve it. You don't know where to start, right? Sometimes. So you could have a potentially a lot of different solutions you could go to. So it's which solution would I want to go to first and do, right? So
well,
and
I would like to add to this. So very often, especially in this field, but it's also true in other complex spaces, is we think of something as a solution, but then we figure out it indeed creates a bunch of new problems. And we don't see it at first. And I just want to give one example in the sustainability arena, which is people now think electric car will solve the problem. Well, actually, this will create a massive problem if we would now all switch on electric cars. The thing is, individual traffic as we know it right now will probably never solve the problem we are facing. So we have to think in a completely different way. And again, although it looks like e-mobility is much better than mobility on fossil fuel, yes. And again, it creates so many other problems that maybe these other problems we don't know yet might be even worse, who knows? So and I'm not wanna, I don't wanna advocate against e-mobility. What I wanna advocate for is that complexity just means there are no easy solutions. And very often we don't know the effect or impact of something where we first think it is a solution. And especially whenever we start scaling up, then the problem gets bigger. So yeah.
So what are some solutions that we can use through agility positively that we can use to directly hit our goal?
Well, I think part of it is just the way we think about problems more than anything. So it's this awareness, right, that we're living in this complex world full of wicked problems. We're living in systems within systems within systems, you know. I think up until recently, when we've thought about problems and solutions, it's been very linear. It's been, this is a problem, what fixes this problem? When actually we need to open our minds and think beyond that particular problem and that solution that solves that problem. So we need to use the diversity of thought and ways of thinking in order to think outside the box, think outside the problem, think outside the solution. So you can not just be measuring the things you think you should be measuring, but all the possibilities around it to see what those impacts really are and whether the solution that you've come up with is actually overall positive, nudging in the right direction. So there's lots of this talk and thinking about these nudges and the short-term versus long-term impacts, you know, and sometimes we do have to make those payoffs between the, you know, for example, e-mobility, like we were talking about, it's a short-term gain on impact, but long-term, it's still a huge problem because everybody still has a car, you know, which is not sustainable. So there's this balance that you need to think of when we're designing and solving problems. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. So what I'm hearing is everything is connected, right? So like you said, systems inside of systems inside of systems, everything is connected, and we need to connect and come together in order to that common goal, in order to make a change and make an impact. Thank you. My next question is about resilience and change. So how might the resilience cultivated through agile practices help young sustainability advocates in navigating complexities or uncertainties, ensuring perseverance in the face of challenges?
It's a great question. All of them are great questions. So what I was thinking about with this one was touching on what we started with talking about, actually, this whole belief and understanding that we live in a complex world. Things change. If we accept that within ourselves, then the ability to be resilient, to keep going in the face of change is a lot easier. So the end point, the goal that we have to find and create and live in and produce a sustainable regenerative world, that will never change, right? But the way that we get there, the paths that we take to get there will as things come. So it's almost an acceptance of that I believe an agile mindset. So thinking in terms of that things will change and that we have to be agile really helps us become resilient to that.
Definitely.
I have a recommendation, I believe, especially for the young sustainability advocates. So what Agile is also about, it's very much about embracing failures, or if you will, embracing learning. This implies understanding that whatever we do might not be the right thing. And the thing that I believe I'm seeing is that aiming for perfection, especially from the young sustainability advocates. So in their own lives, you know, well, and I shouldn't do this and I shouldn't do that, and maybe whatever, you know, and do I do enough? Perhaps not. And you know what? It's all right. It's really all right. There is no need to aim for perfection because there is no perfection. And it doesn't help anyone. And it definitely doesn't help if you're a young advocate here. So what does help is doing like your little, again, coming back to Juan, you started off with it, doing these little baby steps, see where you're going, and then learn from it, and then decide on your next baby step. But forget about aiming for perfection. And to me, this is a really, I don't know, maybe you sense that, but it's really to my heart, because I fear people are burning out because they so much think of what they're doing wrong and what else they need to do, and so on. Well, again, it's all good. Just do like one baby step after the next.
I agree.
The one thing I like about when you talked about resilience, which I think is really important in order for us to, because these problems are going to take us a while to kind of get through, we need to build up that resilience. The one great thing that I've seen in terms of the teams adopting Agile, and Agile, by the way, is not a silver bullet for all these. It's not the silver bullet that's going to solve all these things. But the one thing that I really like about it is the fact that it utilizes iterations or theories of constraints where things are done within a certain time period. So it has a beginning and an end. So they're like 2-week period or 3-week, but you set your iterations. The really important thing about these iterations is because there's a beginning and then there's an end, there's a space between the two. Okay. So, and what that allows us to do is to take stock as to what has been done. It allows you to pause, reflect, and look at where you want to go next. So those little baby steps are all done in these iterations. And that space in between is super, super important. It's super important it's very indulgent. It is a space where you can sit in and then become, and then sort of re-energize yourself in order to get to the next step. And that to me is super important if we're looking at doing this for a super long time to keep that resilience going.
Mhm.
Just to add a little bit to what these wonderful things these lovely ladies are saying, I think ultimately what Agile helps us realize is that we are human. We're not robots. Yeah. So allow for the mistakes, expect mistakes, because we're human and we learn from them. And that's okay. Like Yuta was saying, learn from them, have the mistakes, embrace it as part of who you are, as part of who people are, so that we can work together better. It's just by understanding we are all human and we are all different, and that's okay. In fact, that's good.
I agree. And like you all said, iterative steps are the most important, but bouncing off of that, how can agile frameworks enable approaches for youth-led sustainability projects to grow their impact and reach a broader audience locally and globally? Because as important as small steps are, it's important to have a large impact. So how can agile assist with that? Anyone can take that up.
Maybe picking on again on this iterative approach, and that there is like a begin and an end. So we have those two. The thing is, in the middle, we focus on something. We are not trying to do everything. We have a small focus and then learn from that. So just to maybe again emphasize of what we said already, but putting a little bit different angle on it, what Agile can help you to do there. So keeping the focus and make a difference in like one area, and next time you look at something else based on your learnings.
I like that.
So linking that as well is a very scientific approach. I think Agile is. So we like data. We like to use our data in order to see where the impact, where the influence is. Yeah. So if we get the metrics, but be careful with metrics because you can only see what you want to see. But using our metrics, you can figure out what works, what has the impact that you're after. And you can, again, experiment, tweak that a little bit to extend that impact each time. So yes, we're saying it's small steps, but it's small steps to grow and grow and grow as you go forward.
I think as a sustainability leader, who has a team that's working with them, one of the principles that we have is to do things and like to always be delivering value in every single iteration, right? And that value doesn't, I mean, I know the principles of Agile has a lot of, it talks about software, but where it doesn't have to be software, it can be a learning like we've been talking about. And that's data in itself, right? So if we're able to do things on a weekly basis and be able to get that, get that result, then we can learn, right? And even if it's about, like, the retrospective is a really cool thing that we do all the time. It could be that we learn how better the team needs to work together too, right? So we're always constantly learning in these different iterations. So all of that is data. Yeah.
And talking about data, how can that, with agile principles and methodologies, empower young people and young sustainability leaders to make better, more informed, data-informed decisions, and speeding up the implementation of environmental initiatives?
Well, my suggestion would be in the direction of what, again, Joan said, using retrospectives, really. And it can be regularly, but it can also be completely irregularly, so that it's a group of people who works together, gets together, well, virtually as well, and then looks back at what did we focus on the past whatever time since we met last, and then what difference did we make and did we not make, and what helped us to get there and what hindered us to maybe not get there or not in the way that we thought we will or expected. And then digging deeper by thinking of, okay, and now what can we learn from this? So what is it that we want to keep? What is it that we want to maybe emphasize and stress going forward? What is it that we want to omit and not do again because it was not helpful in the way we collaborate, in the way it could be also market what we are doing also. So then coming up with a different strategy and so on. But having these retrospectives just helps, on the one hand, collecting data, but also to pause and reflect on what has happened, and then learn from it in a way by coming up with ideas. What do we want to do differently for going forward?
I agree, definitely. Retrospect is very important.
So my brain went in a slightly different direction with this question. I've kind of focused on the decision-making aspect because having worked in many large organizations, decision-making, especially even worse sometimes when everybody wants to collaborate. It's brilliant collaboration, love it, must have it. But at the same time, it can make decision-making a very slow and painful process. If you need agreement from everybody before a decision is made. So there's some techniques in Management 3.0, which helps teams think about what level of input is needed for each person with regards to a particular decision. So if you're looking for fast decisions, and maybe you don't have or don't want to spend the time sharing all of the data with everybody, so everybody can have their role, and therefore they will have different types of input to different decisions based on their expertise. So it's a very trusting thing to do. You don't have everybody in agreement. It's you are responsible for that. Therefore, you can have this level of decision-making power to these decisions. But you have to then have that trust and that psychological safety within the group in order for that to really work.
Right, definitely.
Yeah, at the beginning of each of the iterations too, there is this aspect, like each of these are, to me, a small little experiment, that's for sure. And before we start each of those weeks, I like there's a methodology that's out there, a book that's out there called Lean Startup, and they do a lot of what's called validated learning. And this is back to all we're trying to do is learn the best approach that will solve the problem. So the data in my mind is at the very beginning we set up the experiment. We hypothesize that if we do this we will get that, and we'll know that when this happens. And so and that in itself, that sort of like scientific experiment that Joe was talking about earlier, is the initial expectation of what we hope is going to happen. And at the very end of the sprint, you can measure against that. So to me, that purposeful kind of sitting down and envisioning what you want to do next and how it's going to work is really important, so that you can get the data that's required so you can do your next step. And the validated learning allows you to learn what you need to learn so you can figure out what the next step that you're going to go to next, right? So it's a really cool technique too.
Very insightful. I think you were going to say something.
Right. Yeah. So definitely the one thing about hypothesis is super important. I also want to build up on what Joanna said about decision making. And on top of what Joanna also said, or in addition to it, I find it also very helpful to not aiming for agreement, but for acceptance, which makes such a difference and will speed up the decision making. And that's, you see everyone nodding here. So we all kind of do that because it makes such a difference. If you ask people in a group, like, can you live with that? It's never the question, are you in favor with it? Is it the best decision ever? Probably not. Maybe we will never know, because it's also based on most likely a hypothesis, as we also heard, right? But is it good enough for now, safe enough to try? Maybe yes, so let's go for it and do it. And although we might not all think it's best ever, so this coming up with acceptance and sharing the data with who needs to have it. And then again, also with hypothesis, these are all things that kind of come together and then start learning from your decision making, of course, as well.
Wow, this is very, very insightful. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I do have another question. In what ways can Agile empower young sustainability advocates to build dynamic, cross-disciplinary teams and collaborate effectively to drive impactful change?
I guess
yeah.
Go ahead. I could have actually watched you go
now
off
you
of
go.
mute.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure if Agile per se has there something. The main thing is that we say, but this was in your question already, that it's important to have cross-disciplinary teams, meaning we want to have also for a huge problem and wicked problem like we are facing right now. We want to have as many perspectives together as possible, because there is not a single perspective that will help us to grasp what's going on and what possibilities we have for any kinds of solutions or our next baby step. And so this idea of bringing all various perspectives together and start listening to each other, that might be the thing. But again, it was already in the question that kind of, yes, this is important to do. Absolutely. Can't stress that more.
I think what comes up for me is that some of the teens who are the advocate leaders have such a strong vision and a purpose, and they want to go forth with a group of multidisciplinary teams. So it could be a lot of teens which are in there from all over the world, or a lot of great minds. And I make up that energy is amazing, like amazingly high, right? So, and as Joanna was saying, Agile is a very humanistic approach. So one of the things that we do with teams is that we set up team agreements, right? We set up how we make decisions. Like if it's when we're making decisions, we're going to do it as acceptance versus, it has to be everybody on board, right? We talk about how we take care of things we're in conflict or how we escalate. So, and we work with the team, the holistic team, to kind of come up with these agreements. So we're all going towards that same path together. Although we diverge every once in a while, because that's what the great minds will do, and that's okay. But we learn to work with the differences and we bring that together, right? So for me, Agile can really help with that purpose and that vision. And even from the perspective of bringing that, chunking down that vision and purpose into smaller things that the team can get behind, because now they can see what they can do in the next 2-3 months, right? That's again, those iterations, right? So a lot of what Agile can do can help in terms of creating this impact. Again, it's not the silver bullet, but I can see in terms of in this specific area, it can help it can really do a great job with some of these youth leaders. Yeah.
Yeah, so it removes kind of that hierarchy within a team, right?
Mm.
So you bring everybody back to human rather than whatever your role is. It's everybody has a place in the team. And when I see Agile, when we do Agile well and I see Agile done well, then you're back to that, having that trust in a team, and having the different spaces where teams can talk, that allow for those differences. So I started thinking about how, let's go back to a retrospective, for example. Within a retrospective, you might have some time for silent writing and some time for group discussion and maybe some time for drawing. It really depends on the retrospective and the person who's leading it. But you change up to allow for the different ways of thinking in different people to come forth. So back to that human aspect of people, allowing the space for it, creating the spaces for all different types of thinking and ways of working so that people feel comfortable to be themselves. So we get the most out of those different perspectives, that diversity that really is where impactful change comes from.
Definitely. One last question before we can wrap up. How does transparent communication, which is a core value in Agile, how does it contribute to building trust and engagement among youth and stakeholders in sustainability efforts?
So it's very much back to that human aspect, I think. We talked about humans a lot today. It's a good thing we are. So everybody has a different view. Everybody has a different way of thinking. Everybody has a different attitude. And even if you see the same thing, people will describe it a different way. But without that openness of that transparent communication, how will we understand that actually we're talking about the same thing unless we have that transparency and that communication? So you're going to resolve your disagreements much faster if you're open about everything. You're going to enhance the trust because you know what that person's saying is what they believe if everybody's coming from that viewpoint. I don't think I answered your question though, so please somebody else take over.
Oh, you did. You're there. I think that the one thing I would add is that when I think of transparency, I see also within a corporations and organizations, we typically will have a board, right? Like a Miro board or something that contains a whiteboard or something that contains what the team is doing, the health of the team or what they're accomplishing, all that data that we were talking about earlier. So when I think of transparency, there's transparency in communication, which means I'm very open to share everything that with you as to what's going on. But there's also the transparency of the data of what's going on with the stakeholders. And so the stakeholders are not there all the time. So if you are, a leader, an advocate in the space, and you want to do something for your community locally, and you have support from your local government or the local, whoever you're working with those different stakeholders, it's really super important to have these things visible and transparent as to what your team is doing. And it's not just results. It's not that, yay, it worked successfully or it didn't. It's about the whole team journey, right? So they need to understand and feel the frustrations of the team. They need to understand, what the team is doing. They need to understand the impact that the team is doing as well, whether or not it's working or it's not, or what they're learning, right? And back to that learning aspect. Yep, we're learning how to do this. We've done this particular thing, but all of that engages our stakeholders and then also engages the team too, because they're super excited to share all that stuff with the stakeholders, right? So that transparency, which is a core value, can be very inspiring and can get the support that's really required for you as an advocate, right?
Okay, I feel it's time for me to play the devil's advocate here.
Ooh.
Which is, at least in the corporate setting, what I've experienced is that asking for transparency in the moment where trust is not there yet, then transparency is so much received or perceived as control. And it's not helping and it's not getting anywhere. So if there is already trust there, no worries, we are all fine. And I agree completely with my two colleagues here. Yet if it's not there yet, well, it could really backfire. And I know it's different in a group that comes together and shares the same passion and so on. However, as we also heard many times today, we are all humans, and even in groups like that, that can happen. That if someone asks for more transparency, another one might feel offended and saying, well, it seems you're not trusting me. Why are you asking that? Right? So even if we talk about making just data transparent, it could be perceived in a different way. So from my experience, I'm not so sure if transparency is the thing that really creates the trust. I think, well, on the one hand, for certain, trust always goes ahead, which means you first have to give trust before it really starts getting like a trusted connection or a trusted group. So it's not just, I don't know, coming magically. Yet it is really more on showing how you are having the trust on other individuals before, I think, asking for anything like transparency. And also, again, if the trust is not there and you make stuff transparent, well, maybe also that can backfire because people say, well, great that I have that data. I will see what I do with this. And well, I guess we all have seen this, so the three of us have seen that in the corporate world because information is also power. So, okay, I'm done with my devil's advocate and leave it over to you.
No, this is
You
so
solve
good.
it now.
No, I don't think there's actually any key way of solving it, but this is where the retrospective is really super important, right? This is where, should I be transparent, super transparent, or shouldn't I be transparent, and what's going to happen, and what's the hypothesis of it, right? Is it going to bring that, like if we're talking about our stakeholders, right? Like, is it going to bring that trust? What do we think they really need or don't need, right? And that can come back into some of the user-centric type of questions, right, that we are looking at. But I think, again, I love the wisdom. You have such great wisdom, and it's so true, right? It can be too much, right? And so how do we experiment in a little experiment as to what is enough transparency so that we can get that trust, that alignment, everything that we feel will be a benefit of it.
Yeah, bringing this back to the question, so among youth advocates and stakeholders in sustainability efforts, I'm trying to marry everything you said together. I'm wondering if would you guys suggest, your team agreement is the level of transparency, is that something you can set to begin with? I've had that work before, and with stakeholders as well. So you can say, for example, we're going to do this with radical candor. So we're going to come from a place of care and true full transparency and openness. There will be times when we say stuff that you don't like, and so if you're open about it from the start, and say that's how we're going to run this project, this initiative, whatever it is that you're doing. So you start with openness, say it's going to be open and transparent. Then everybody expects it. So I think that's how you can start with trust. But you have to kind of take that, right, we're going to be upfront, square the shoulders back, right? Have some trust that people are going to accept that true transparency no matter what it brings. And that can be tough. That can be tricky.
Since our main audience is the youth and the teens, what is like a recommendation that we can motivate teens with? And how can we move forward? Because there are obviously pros and cons towards being transparent. There's two sides to every argument. But for teens specifically, how can we move forward with this? What recommendation or advice can you give for that?
So first of all, transparency is an aim. And I think this is what I wanted to make clear, because the question sounded so much, being transparent will enforce the trust, but that's not necessarily so. So I just wanted to be realistic here. But having transparency as an aim, that is super important. And as Joanna just right now said, having also these like agreements in the group, how you want to work together. So this is a super clear recommendation, how you want to go forward and settle what are the expectations in the group, how we want to work together. And then, of course, the thing that we all have repeated over and over again, a retrospective. A retrospective helps create, we want to learn from one another what helps us and what doesn't help us. And what's not helping us, well, we stop doing it. And what does, we want to emphasize that and leverage it. And what we are missing, we find out and bring it in. So retrospectives, again, another like maybe our huge recommendation for a group, do this whenever you feel like it's good to do it regularly, but I also understand, especially for groups like that, sometimes that's not possible to do it really on a rhythm, but ensure you're doing it.
Definitely.
The one thing I really like what Yuta's saying, and this is actually some of the stuff I've been working with some of the corporate teams as well. It is sometimes we think that this is the love. It's not the end goal of everything, right? To be fully transparent. It's actually the journey, right? And recognizing that we will never fully be there. We can start off there, but the thing that I think that is most important is having the conversations when we have different perspectives, because it's within the different perspectives, that's where we learn, right? If we're always the same, if everyone's always the same, we're always going to get that same sort of outcome, right? We're always just, it's not, like, to me, it's not so exciting. Bring on the differences, right? And so, one team, what we're going to experiment, everything like that. Like, it's great to go to 100% agile, or to be like, to be one team. It's a good guiding light, but it's not the destination. It's actually about the journey and exploring the differences, right? And having that conversations. Again, back to the humanistic approach of what Agile is trying to do, is to get people to start to have these conversations about what really matters, right? And that is going to be the key, right? Is having those conversations of the differences so we can figure out what we can do next.
Right. I agree. Since our summit is centered around the theme of uniting for a greener future. I think completely right. Transparency should be an aim, like the target, and we should come together and help foster that. People should be able to trust each other to give each other information, but the right information, if you know what I mean. But thank you so much for engaging in this panel. Throughout the session, we've talked about adaptability, collaboration, and a willingness to embrace change. And this call to action about letting us integrating like agile principles into our actions, policies, and mindsets. This will help us champion a future where agility and sustainability intertwine to forge a path towards coexistence with our planet. Thank you, Yuta, Joanne, and Joanna. This has been very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
After around 10 minutes, our closing keynote speaker will join us and conclude this summit. Thank you so much. Hi everyone, welcome back. Unfortunately, Ikuo is unable to join us today. We will upload a separate video on the EcoTeens YouTube channel with his speech, so stay tuned for that. As the summit comes to a close, let us reflect on the insights that we have shared today and that we have learned. Throughout our journey, we witnessed the power of collective wisdom, the resonance of impassioned voices, and the unwavering commitment to safeguarding our planet. Each discussion and every insight has given us hope, and it leads us to a brighter, greener future. As we depart from the summit, let's remember the words of wisdom shared by those who lead the charge. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth. Let us pledge to take actionable steps, both big and small, to integrate sustainable practices into our daily lives. Whether it's advocating for policy changes, reducing our carbon footprint, or fostering eco-consciousness in our communities, each action amplifies our collective impact. The time for change is now. Let's embrace a future where sustainability is not just a choice, but a way of life. Today, let's create the change and cultivate a world where harmony between humanity and nature flourishes. Thank you all for being a part of this transformative journey. Let's commit ourselves to be the change makers, the guardians of our planet, and the champions of sustainability. Our actions pave the way for a thriving and resilient tomorrow. Thank you everyone who joined us today, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.